Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
I'm angry that this goldfish died. I'm angry that anyone dies. I'm angry that death is a thing. And I realized that God is angry too. He didn't design death. That was not the part of the original plan. So obviously, God did not ordain Ryan's death so that I could be this big inspirational person on podcast with her kids' headphone on. Okay, he did not ordain that. That was not his plan. He's mad that it happened too, and that epiphany happened around a toilet.
Our guest is Leslie Harter-Berg. She is a speaker, a writer, owner of a production company, Harter Creative, and the founder of a nonprofit called Vids for Wids, which creates grief content aimed at helping widows feel less alone. And after the sudden death of Leslie's husband, Ryan, in 2019, and she became a young widow, single mom, and solo business owner with a newfound passion to learn and share more about grief and the mess of rebuilding. Leslie, I am so excited to welcome you to the podcast today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So you have always been a writer. This new book that we're going to talk about, You're So Strong, this is kind of a next logical step because you've been writing ever since you were young.
That's right. I went to school for screenwriting. When I was young, I obsessively wrote stories. I think I won the book fair when I was young about some story about a cat. I always thought that I would eventually write like fantasy or romantic comedies or movies. So this isn't exactly the first book that I thought I would be writing, but it is the first book that fell into my lap. And yeah, it's not the circumstance you think you're going to be writing about, but it was really a gift to get to write.
I read the whole thing cover to cover in one night, up way
Whoa.
past my bedtime, because there are parts of it that does read like a screenplay. Like, I know one of your influences is Nora Ephron. Like, I can really see all of those influences in the voice you have in this book. And so, first of all, you say it's a book for pre-grievers, which is all of us. It's a book on grief, but it truly, truly applies to all of us.
That's such a compliment. My hope is that people that just like reading like the story because someone who just loves reading and writing wrote it. And I did format it like a screenplay, which is a bit meta for really my relationship with Ryan, who died. Ryan and I met. The foundation of our relationship was writing. We met on the first day of work at this children's media company, and he found out that I had graduated with a degree in screenwriting, and he wanted to learn how to write, and I wanted a writing partner. So immediately before we really knew each other, we would get together and work on our screenplays and nerd out on stories. And so writing this book and putting it into a screenplay format, sort of a structure, a 3-act structure, really is an homage to Ryan, who the book is about. And it also made it really fun for me to write about something painful, but to get to structure it in a way that I love and that Ryan and I used to love nerding out about. It felt like hanging out with him while I was writing it.
Let's talk a little bit more about Ryan. I love how you share about him in the book. And I love how you even included some of his features that were like a little less than savory because, you know, when you remember someone, you talk about how sometimes we kind of only idealize the great parts. But in there, you're like, Ryan Harter, public flosser.
Yeah. Yeah, gross. Let's talk about his flaws. I think that always bugged me that when people died, they get turned into angels. Now, there is a lot of good things to say about my husband. He was a magical person, an amazing person. But I feel like when it comes to my boys, it's hard to have a fully formed person if you don't know about their flaws too. When they're trying to imagine who this person was, that they're already starting to turn into him. They're little clones of him. And they have some of his good parts and they have some of his flaws too. So I feel like it's really important to know the bad parts about a person too. Not really bad, but more the things that kind of make them, their quirks, the things that got on my nerves. It's interesting as time goes on, I miss those too. I miss like fighting with Ryan. We were in a big fight when he died, which was hard. Like we were in Disneyland and we were fighting because he wanted to do his own thing and I wanted to make sure my sister was happy. I was like trying to balance a lot of expectations. So we were like yelling at each other at Disneyland and 3 days later he died. And what's interesting is at the time that was hard and that was all I really wanted to be able to say to him. I didn't really get any last words, but I was like, "Oh, I wish we could solve this fight." But then as time went on, you miss the fights because that's just evidence of like the living, breathing person there. You miss the struggle. And so what's interesting is I am married again. Spoiler alert. I do get married again and I do fight again. And I did find someone else with flaws. And guess what? I cherish it. Even when we're having these fights, I try to be in the moment and be like, this is what it means to get to have companionship. This is what it means to be in relationship. So, yeah, I think that to anyone out there who is annoyed by their spouse, this is like an invitation to kind of notice how those little flaws make up that person, that beautiful person in front of you.
And it added to so much comedic relief in your book. And I know that when you were initially going through your grieving as a straight A student, as you know, the whole premise, one of the premises of this book is that you wanted to get an A+ at grieving. Like, where's your syllabus? Show me how to do it. What are these stages? I'm going to crush these stages. And when you were reading some books on grief, you either felt drawn to the ones that had that comedic relief, which is part of your personality, but they were missing the faith component, the ultimate hope, which as a believer is so important to you. But then if you found the ones that were kind of ultra Christian, ultra hope filled, you weren't quite ready. It didn't have the rawness that you needed. And this book is right in the middle.
Oh, I'm glad that you felt that because that really was my goal. There's so many beautiful books about grief, but I wasn't ready at the beginning to read the really beautiful ones, the ones that got to that hope message. And I wasn't ready to hear from people, Ryan's in a better place and anything that sort of tied up the whole story in a pretty bow. I didn't want to read that. And so I hope this book for people that grab it when they're in their loss is very cathartic because it's an honest telling of how awful it is and that it's okay that it's awful. We don't need to get to the punchline. Okay, we can stay in the awful. But also because it is a Christian book and I am a Christian, there is an element of hope in it, but I hope that it's the kind that holds both truths that God is good and life is awful and terrible things happen and Ryan shouldn't be dead. And somehow those things can exist at the same time. So I tried to write in that tension and I'm glad it came across for you. But that was the goal.
One of the places I saw that the most was when you decided that you were going to go through the cards, the sympathy cards that people had sent you. And let's see, this is the chapter, The Sacred Grounds of Central Perk, because Leslie would often fall asleep to Friends episodes in the background, like white noise, which I thought was brilliant as well. And so you were going through the cards, and when there would be a Bible verse, or when you would need to maybe open up, or you had a really hard time opening up scripture. And I put a little bookmark on this line because I laughed out loud. The card would maybe say something like, "I'm sorry for your loss. You and the boys are in our prayers." And as Psalm 27:13 says, "Shumble sharp sloopity carpenter."
Yes. I think I used in that section specifically, the mumbling is like something that there's a lot of little hidden Ryan gems in there. I think he used to say like Colonel Stank when he was doing a mumble. So he's like, "Shabba Colonel Stank." I do that somewhere in the book. A little treasure for those who knew Ryan. That's prayer is not a metaphor. That was my weird physiological response to grief. I literally could not read the Bible. It was like my eyes went cross-eyed. I kind of had a sort of traumatic response to it, I guess. I didn't have a lot of physical I couldn't eat for a while, but I didn't have panic attacks. I didn't have a lot of the physical grief reactions I thought I would, but I had a really hard time reading. It would get blurry, and especially the Bible, and I think that was because I didn't realize how much the Bible for me meant future and forward thinking. The Bible to me, I didn't realize until that time that when I would read the Bible, I was kind of like, "All right, give me your plan, your will, God. Tell me what I'm supposed to do tomorrow and the next day and the next day. Like, this is a guide to live my life." After Ryan died, I wasn't very interested in looking forward. I wasn't very interested in the future. I wasn't trying to figure out how to live my best life now. I was like, I couldn't take it in, and I think that's why. It took me a long time to be able to read the Bible, and I still had faith when I wasn't doing that discipline, but it just looked different. It wasn't like a future connected faith. It was more like, oh, finding that God finds this terrible too, and just sitting in that and sitting in the bad. But yeah, it was frustrating going cross-eyed when I wanted to just do the right thing as the book is about, and that proved difficult when I couldn't read how to do the right thing.
It was a beautiful epiphany you mentioned just now. God finds this terrible too. Was the moment you had that light bulb of the Lord saying, I hate death too, was that around goldfish time?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The chapter about my mama. Oh, my mom, God bless her. Okay, so I have the chapter that's called Let's Give Anger a Try. And in that chapter, a lot of my anger gets directed at my sweet mom who bought my kids the easiest pet to kill, a goldfish. Those things are so fragile, and I was very panicked about getting it right. Like you can't have the water has to be a certain way, and you cannot overfeed them. And they die so easily, and we killed that goldfish within 2 weeks. And I was livid at my mom, like, "How dare you? How dare you bring death back into my life?" And so I did this little funeral memorial around the toilet bowl with my boys, Whit and Rory, 3 and 1. And I had this epiphany at that moment that, oh, I'm not actually angry at my mom at all. I'm angry that this goldfish died. I'm angry that anyone dies. I'm angry that death is a thing. And I realized that God is angry too, that he didn't design death. That was not the part of the original plan, right? And sort of looking at the whole story of the Bible, right? The whole idea is that death is the last enemy to go. So obviously, planning God did not ordain Ryan's death so that I could be this big inspirational person on podcast with her kids' headphone on. Okay. He did not ordain that. That was not his plan. He's mad that it happened too. And that epiphany happened around a toilet. And I've really carried that ever since. And that's something that I always say when someone comes to me after they've had a loss too. That's like the only comforting Christian thought I can give at that time is that this is bad. This is not a part of the plan. God's mad too. I go to that instead of, it's all going to work out great. You'll see. I start with that instead of hope, you know?
Mm-hmm. You, because you wanted to help your children in future years, they were 3 and 1, right, when Ryan died. And so you were forward thinking enough when you were planning Ryan's memorial to, you had different aspects of his life and his personality that you wanted incorporated into it. They were very specific. I thought this was a beautiful moment of clarity. How did you even
We had the memorial so soon after he died. I do not recommend that. It was because it was gonna be Easter, and there was sort of this my whole world is pastors. My dad's a pastor, my brother-in-law's a pastor, and they're like, "We gotta get the memorial before Easter because everyone's gonna be at home. They're not gonna wanna travel." So we did it in 12 days, and I honestly don't know how I had that moment of clarity. The biggest reason is because my good friend, who's almost a brother to me, Pete, and a pastor, his dad died when he was 10. And he told me that he would rewatch the same VHS over and over again of his dad's memorial service. And they didn't have a lot of photos or footage of their dad. That's like all he had. And he would just watch it over and over. And that hearing his friends talk about him, and that was all he knew about him. And it was so important to him. And he was one of the first people that, he's kind of like the death guy. He's actually a firefighter chaplain. So he tells people when they've lost someone, he's like the first to the house. And so he's that way at our church too. So he was the first to kind of talk to me after Ryan died outside of my family. And he brought up that story because he was like, "Okay, we're going to communicate this to the church. We're going to do this." And he kind of brought up the story about his dad. And so I was like, this is not just a moment to pass by. This could be something that the boys rewatch over and over again. My boys were so young, and Rory was only 1, so didn't really have the ability to talk about his dad, and who knows what memories he had. And Wit was 3 and had all these memories, but I had to kind of watch them fade and change and morph as years went by. And so I was like, this is hugely important. And so because of that, I was like, I need to sit down and think through the different aspects of Ryan. And I need to ask those people that can speak to those aspects to come and put something together and talk. And honestly, it was such a beautiful memorial service. I really wasn't fully there when I was there, but I'm so grateful to have the video now. I've rewatched it. We rewatched it a few times throughout the years, and I'm just so grateful that I did have some clarity to be able to do that, because at the time I was not taking it in.
2 follow-ups to this. One is crazy, and I don't know is it too soon to laugh about, but like half of you had norovirus.
That's partly why I couldn't take it in. Yes, because before I went on that stage, I was throwing up all night, and we all got sick. So the norovirus actually started before Ryan died. In Disneyland, my niece was throwing up. And I guess everybody back home was starting to get it. But then everybody that came and traveled out to the shoot, like Ryan's family and all of his best friends, they all came to visit me at my house. And Rory and Wit and I are just racing to the toilet. Just so much laundry, so much throw up. And these poor people, they all like went back on their flights and they're like throwing up on the plane, and they all took it home. The one thing about the norovirus and grief is that it does help kind of keep the grief from like hitting you all at once, because you're so physically consumed with not throwing up, that it was like, oh, this is maybe sort of a gift, because I wasn't able to I couldn't even think because I was throwing up so much. But I was like panicked. How am I going to get on the stage and talk? So luckily, I was through the worst of it and was able to kind of hobble onto the stage and talk about Ryan at the memorial. But my dad was the last person to talk, and he immediately left the stage to go throw up. So it was a joke. It was like that scene from Bridesmaids.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it was bad.
And then the sweet part, okay, so just take that information and just set it to the side for a moment. And then the precious part is that you included, as you had people speak to different aspects of Ryan and who he was and all of that, so that your boys would grow up and see the fullness of their dad represented on that day. You included a section where someone spoke to his love for you, and the fact that when he would look at you, he would have Christmas morning eyes when he would just look at you.
Yeah, I mean, that part of Ryan is Yeah, I mean, that was a huge part of who he was. The beginning of our story, I was not really I was, like, playing hard to get, and he was so, "I am infatuated with you, I love you," and it's interesting, that was kind of, like, something we teased about, we would tell our story all the time, but it's interesting how much that became a part of my identity, that I was the woman that Ryan loved, and I didn't realize how much security that brought me until it was gone. So that was a wild thing about widowhood, is that you don't just lose your best friend, you also lose kind of like that confidence that you are enough for somebody, you are the one. And yeah, he was just a very beautiful romantic soul. And honestly, on every date that we went on, he would cry and just look at me and be like, I can't believe that I got you. And what a gift. I want that for all of my single friends. Whenever they're like, "Who am I gonna end up with?" I'm like, "Oh, there's someone who will love you with those eyes." Yeah, and that was a huge loss for me, and our relationship was very like, we did everything together. So, to have a memorial service without showing all the videos that we made together and the work we did together just felt wrong, so we included a little section on that too.
Do you want to share a bit about one of the ways that you and your boys and your extended family honor Ryan each year on his birthday?
Yes. Okay. We have a giant Ryan Day. It's our favorite holiday at our house. We always stop work, the kids get out of school. This year it was on a weekend, so we didn't have to do that. But one of my favorite things that we do is we found this bucket list that Ryan made when he was a teenager. It's so wild. We found it 2 years after he died, and it's a list of things to do before death. And it's the most Ryan list. So one of the things is go to a public place dressed as a pirate. And that was the first one we did because I was like, this is so Ryan. He was such a goofball. And some of them are so sweet, like get married and have kids, which he got to do because this is a list he made when he was maybe 15, 16. And so we decided that each year on his birthday, we'll pick an item from the list and check it off. So we've built a 3-foot card tower. We've played chess in a park and gone to an art museum and appreciated. That was so sweet. This year we started piano lessons for the kids because that's on there. And so every year we're kind of committed to get through that list. And one of the items is bungee jumping, and I'm not looking forward to that. We're gonna postpone that one. I don't think I'm gonna be there for that one, and the boys have to at least be 25.
Okay.
That's what I've decided. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna be a part of it at all.
All right. That's fair. Because you and Ryan started this production company, Harter Creative, which I think was really his prodding. He's like, let's go out on our own. We can do this. He had the vision. You joined him. And it's just so interesting how, I mean, even that piece of him lives on. Wasn't one of it, he wanted to write books. This piece of him lives on. Like just his
Mm.
fingerprints are all over everything. Do you want to talk a little bit about Harter Creative?
Yeah, our first baby, really. We had Harter Creative before we had Wit. Yeah, that Harter Creative is really Ryan's pushing, like you said. So I was a happy employee. As I talk in the book, I just want to do what's expected of me. And I was very happy being the producer at this company we were at. And when we got married, he was like, come on, let's leave. Let's start our own thing. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't wanna do the feast and famine. I don't wanna know where the money's coming from." And he was like, "No, we could be our own boss," which is my worst nightmare, right? And so I really, like, dragged my feet for a bit, but then he proved to me he got some jobs without me and was like, "See, we could do this." So he proved to me that we could. And so we started in 2014, and honestly, there were so many highs and lows. It was really hard to have a business together, but also the flexibility of having your own business and the creative freedom. We had so much fun. But when he died, I was doing it alone. And it was really I had to sort of decide, do I want also my everyday life to be showing that Ryan is gone, that there's this giant hole in my everyday life. Every day that I show up to work, it's another missing piece. Plus, when I get home, he's also gone. So a lot of widows just have the one side where it's like they can go sort of escape at work. My work was like just blaring his absence at me. And so I decided though that, it just felt good to do this extension of him. Just like it did writing this book. Like it felt like hanging out with Ryan and it felt good to grow his dream, really. And we've grown a lot since he's died and we've done such cool projects and I miss him so much. I miss having a business partner, but there's no one that I want to be my business partner besides him. I miss just like wrestling with ideas with him and late night creative sessions, but it also feels good each time we do a big project. Like we just did a commercial this week. That's the biggest one we've ever done. But it's just weird timing because it's the same week that my book comes out. And there's just been a lot of weird things like that where it just feels like, oh man, I wish Ryan could be a part of this, but this feels so cool to see his vision and the thing he started taking off without him. It just means so much to me as Ryan's friend,
Yeah.
I want his dreams to come true.
Right? Okay, so the project you can't name yet, eventually, if someone follows Harter Creative on Instagram, will they eventually figure it out?
Yes, we do. We share our work all the time.
Okay. So if you want to go see some of Leslie's work, we'll link up in the show notes to Harter Creative. And then also, that has led your background in production and film and screenwriting, just all of it has led to another project for you called Vids for Wids.
Yes, Vids for Wids is a platform where we let widows tell their stories and we get kind of dark and weird and we don't shy away from dark humor. And we ask the relatable questions. And the idea is that the best way to help somebody in the worst year of their life is to just help them feel less alone. And that was really the most helpful thing for me was talking with other widows. I couldn't get enough of their stories because in my own group and my own circle, I was the only one who had lost a spouse. And so I loved my friends. My community was so available to me, but their words kind of just couldn't quite help the way someone else that was like, oh, I get it, could. And so when I thought about wanting to use the creativity that I already have and making videos, I have a production team to help widows. I was like, the best way to help a widow is to just tell as many widow stories as possible. So that's sort of our goal is we just bring widows in. And we put them in front of the lights and the cameras and we kind of give them their moment and tell them, what happened to you is important and it's going to help other widows. And so it's meaningful for the widows that come and are on camera, but it's also very meaningful for the ones who are just doom scrolling and trying to figure out like, am I the only one that's gone through this? And I just hope that they feel they can get through the next day a little bit better. It's still going to be hard. It's still going to be terrible, but I hope that it's some sort of solace and help in that worst year of their life.
And often these are just like bite-sized little short form videos that you can find like instead of doom scrolling, hopefully you would stumble upon this. Often they are over a shared casserole eaten directly out of the pan.
Yeah, sometimes it's called deep dish, where we eat out of a deep dish and we go deep and dish out the stories of our hard thing. Yeah, that's been fun too, to do interviews with widows over casserole. I recommend. Delicious.
So give that one a follow. And then Leslie's personal account, the fact that we're going to talk about Solomon, that's Leslie's husband. She's remarried. They have an adorable son and a blended family. And somehow you convinced, in the book, he is called Tall, Dark, and Handsome.
He hates being called that, but I love teasing him.
One of the first interactions was he handed you a Swiffer to clean up after yourself. I'm like,
what's so funny is he told me it wasn't a Swiffer, and I was like, that is what's in my memory. And he said it on camera on Instagram. I was like, why didn't you tell me this sooner? The book is printed. I guess it was a mop. He said I would never use a Swiffer because that's not up to his standards. It was so classic him. Yeah, he handed me cleaning supplies.
You guys moved out into some land. There's a river and there's a hill is that your own backyard that you have him in a row
Yes.
with the Pride and Prejudice music, walking with a copy of your book like Mr. Darcy? I need to know how you went from an inkling of an idea that you wanted to capture that to asking him, talking him into it, and then the final product. I need to hear about this.
Okay, well, ever since we moved here, whenever it's foggy and the sun is coming up, I'm like Pride and Prejudice. I put the Pride and Prejudice music over it all the time, and I've been telling him like, I need you to get a Mr. Darcy outfit, and I need you to grow sideburns, and I just need you walking up this hill. I've been asking him for years to do it, and he's like, no, absolutely no. But here's the thing. He wants this book to do well. So I'm like, oh, I'll use the book. And so I was like, babe, you got to walk up this hill holding my book. And he was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm like, it's to sell the book. So anyways, he was like in bed and I was like, the light is perfect. That's the thing is like the perfect light is not at a convenient time. I was like, you have to get out of bed. And we didn't get Mr. Darcy clothes, but we have your bathrobe. I was like, what do we have that's like long and drapey? So we got the bathrobe and he was like so annoyed. But now I think he secretly loves it. It's a great video. It's my finest work.
I would concur. I saw that and I'm just like, the level of layers of what we have going on here is so good. It's so good. It's so good. It's so you. And I love that he obliged. Do you want to share a little bit about you talked about it in the book. We want to share a little bit about finding love again.
Yes, I met Saul very quickly after Ryan died, which was very surreal and weird. We met at that shoot where he handed me cleaning supplies. And then shortly after he was at my sister's house, she had a taco night and my sister is my neighbor. So I like wandered over there and I'm there with the kids and he's following me around this party, this guy. And he was asking me questions about my life. And I was just having this sort of moment where I was like, what, am I single again? I'm single. And that was surreal and strange. And it felt good because my day to day, minute to minute was like pain and grief. And I'm a widow. And so it felt good. And at the time, I was so deeply lonely. And a lot of widows can understand this. And people that aren't widowed have a hard time understanding how soon you just want to kiss somebody or touch somebody or anything. And it's embarrassing and it feels like a betrayal to your spouse. But I think it's because you're so used to having companionship. You're so used to being touched. And then all of a sudden it's like snuffed out, especially with sudden death. It's just gone. And so I was sort of weirded out that I wanted that. And then this guy shows up and he's like, hey. And I was like, hey. And everybody in my life was like, no, no way. Your husband just died. And I think they were very wise. But my sister was like on team, let's get you a random makeout sesh. And she was all for it. But everyone in our lives were like, I think they were thinking more for his sake, which it's good because I would have just used him and lost him. And honestly, the timing of it was all great because he ended up dating someone else. It's fine. It's fine. And then I had a whole year where he was always on my mind, like, oh, that guy that was into me at the party. And he was sort of became a joke, really. And he remodeled my kitchen because at that party he offered to for free. And then I was like, well, now he's dating someone else. Do I still take him up on that? And everyone's like, absolutely, you do. And so I hit him up to remodel my kitchen. And he was dating at the time. It was all very professional. And so I knew that, okay. But then I brought him back to do my bathroom. And during that time, he was single again. And so I made a move. I actually had a widow friend. At that time, I was 2 years after Ryan died. I hadn't dated except for a very terrible dating app date. And I decided to ask him out. And I had a widow friend that was like, I always asked people out because you're kind of intimidating. Having 2 kids is a lot. And so I invited him over. And a year later, we were married or we were engaged and then married a couple months later after that.
And then a couple months after that, expecting your third son. And I remember you saying something at the time of just kind of like, we got to get going. You could die. I could die. Like, we could all die. So let's just live our life.
Exactly. That was also motivated by the fact that Whit and Rory were getting older. And I was like, if we're going to do this, if we are going to have more kids, I am not into the like family A, family B. I don't want it to feel like they're separate from, so I wanted to have a kid as soon as possible, and very blessed that we were able to. I, I'm, this story is funny because I didn't really bring Saul in on that. Really, I just was like, "Hey, we might be pregnant," and he was like, "What?" Like he didn't. It's his fault that he didn't know how science works. He was like, "No, that's not true." I don't know if you want to include this. But anyways, I was like, "No, it's important. We got to have a baby as soon as possible." And what a gift it has been to have Reese. He really was the glue to the blended family. It is not easy blending and figuring out how to do the adopted dad thing and the kind of honoring the old family and the new family. And I really think having Reese as like the tie that binds, he has Whit and Rory share blood with him. And so does Saul. Like he brings us all together and they're so close with him. And it's been great. It's been such a gift. But I am done now because boys, too many boys.
Leslie, no pressure, but I hope there are many more books from you over time because this was a joy to read. And at the recording of this, your book will be in the world. Your book baby will have been birthed by the time this releases. But at this exact moment right here, you're on the eve of it launching tomorrow. So I feel like I only get the exclusive on how that feels in this moment. How does today feel for you?
I am kind of I'm excited for it to just be here because I've been talking about it for so long. But it also is just it's just surreal, very surreal is what I would say. And it's a big question mark because this is my first book. And the publisher really took a chance on me. So it means a lot that you liked it. It feels like I am very new out in the world. It's not like people are grabbing me because they know my story very well. So it does feel like a big question mark of how will this play out? But I'm just so grateful to be here. So no matter how it plays out, I just feel immense gratitude that I got to do this. One thing that Ryan always said on any set that we did or anything that we created, he would go, "Can you believe we get to do this?" And that is how I have felt every step of the way, writing this book, publishing it. Wow.
And then I know last week you were posting like you just got featured in People magazine. Like,
so weird.
Was that a surprise to you?
That was wild. I mean, I did that interview a little bit ago, but all the timing is really wild because there's also been all these interviews that have popped up this week because of Ryan's bucket list. Because his birthday was in March and I like posted about it. And so all these people like Newsweek have wanted to talk and Today. And it's just very, very surreal 7 years later to have this story resonating with people and that they want to know about Ryan's bucket list. It just means so much to me. I like to say that he always wanted to go viral and now he is. It's like a weird timing, but I'm excited that Ryan's going a little viral right now.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Passion Meets Purpose podcast. Thank you to Josh Model, our show producer. Thank you to Lana Vegas, our scheduler and our guest coordinator. These episodes would not happen if it wasn't for them. And I would welcome it if you would take a moment to rate and review the podcast. It helps others to find it. Plus, it just makes the show better. And one of my favorite things is to hear from you on who would you like to be featured as a guest on this show. So you can connect with us at purposely.com. Thank you.